we engage in that cycle, and then by the end of it we burn out. We're just like, I can't anymore. I don't know. I feel like I need to take a break from everything. I don't even feel like myself anymore. I'm not doing the things that were fun for me before. And I feel simultaneously really overwhelmed, but also just like really, I can't quite name it, but no matter how much I rest, no matter how much break I take, it just doesn't go away.
Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show for the spiritual guide who knows there's more. More depth, more truth, more realness in the work you're here to do. Whether you're a healer, coach, or intuitive, this podcast helps you reconnect with your gifts, trust your path, and lead from soul, not stress. Hosted by me, Spirit Bird. I'm a master shaman, best-selling author, and founder of Holton Healing Arts. My intention is that each episode brings grounded insight into spiritual growth, energy mastery, and the real-life journey of walking as a spiritual leader. You can find me at Spirit Bird Official. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today and my guest, Sheridan Ruth. Excited to talk to you about healing burnout and nervous system and all things in between in our lives. Welcome, Sheridan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. I think I want to jump in with this burnout idea. And I think most people know what that is once they get there, but we hear nervous system regulation, we hear somatics, we hear overwhelm is definitely something on a lot of people's minds right now. And right before the conversation, I was reminded a few weeks ago, I met a gal and she was saying, that she listened to a mental health person talk about mental health and that she never really thought about mental health for herself until she learned that anxiety is part of mental health. And then she had somebody describe anxiety to her and she was like, oh, I have that all the time. Which to me, I was like, yeah, of course that's mental health. And so it made me think, gosh, we talk about overwhelm and being regulated. And I'm so curious to hear from your perspective, like, what does that mean? What is that like in life? And like the daily life, how does that show up in our bodies? How does that show up for you? Let's just start playing there.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was teaching to a group of I was pulled into this award-winning marketing agency. And I was teaching them about the nervous system states. And I was like, hey, yeah, so when you're in a fight or a flight, this is what it feels. And I was describing, a lot of the time it just feels kind of like a buzz in your body and your mind is pretty active and you just kind of have energy inside of your body, meaning like you could go and you could do something. And in a healthy way, when we have a really like resilient and regulated nervous system, maybe you feel that for a couple of minutes, maybe like 90 minutes at most. That would be kind of a healthy focus cycle. But a lot of people, and this guy interrupts me and he goes, I feel that all day, every day. He goes, is that not normal? And I was like, actually, it is really normal in that it's really common. However, it's not healthy for the body to be in that activated state where our mind is really, really active, where it's kind of like always trying to figure things out. Sometimes people call this like a flow state, and there's a very fine line because you have activity in your body, maybe, or maybe you're more of the depressed scale where you're just like overwhelmed and everything feels heavy and it just feels like there's a wall and you're just like kind of going through the motions. Those are our two main states of dysregulation. What you're speaking to is that overwhelm. And I think, which is that place where everything just feels too busy. Mm-hmm. And what initially happens is everything feels too busy. So I have energy come into my body, meaning that I go into a sympathetic state. And now I try to do things. I write a list, I make a plan, I call my friend, I sign up for this course, I'm a planner. A lot of my clients are planners, so I
Sure.
tend to use this example. Yeah. But I try to get it done, I try to fix things. I try to like deal with the overwhelm by minimizing the things that are overwhelming. But if we do that and it's not resolved, which it won't be, because a lot of the overwhelm or the anxiety or the fear or the concern either isn't real. We're afraid about something that's not actually happening. We're afraid about something that's going to happen in the future, that might happen, that could happen. or we're, we live in, I don't know, we put it into ChatGPT or we Google it and there's like now six other things that we have to figure out. Like the world is constantly creating problems. And what then happens is then we go into that dorsal state where it's like so overwhelmed that I feel frozen. Like it's too much. I feel like I can't take it. I feel like I'm frozen. I couldn't possibly. And you would have seen this, I think, maybe as in the healing and personal development space. Those of us who have been around for a little while, like I know that you've spoken a lot to cycles and I see this in it. When we go into the healing space with this intention of fixing a problem that doesn't exist, such as ourself. So when it's laced with a little bit of shame or I'm not quite right, we engage in that cycle and then by the end of it we burn out. We're just like, I can't anymore. I don't know. I feel like I need to take a break from everything. I don't even feel like myself anymore. I'm not doing the things that were fun for me before. And I feel simultaneously really overwhelmed, but also just like really, I can't quite name it, but no matter how much I rest, no matter how much break I take, it just doesn't go away.
Would you say for a lot of people, this is a can be kind of a subtle experience?
I think particularly especially regarding healing, it's really subtle. It's really, I would call it kind of sneaky because
Mhm.
you have to have a lot of self-awareness to actually notice that it's that thing. A lot of us might think it's something else. It's my job. It's my relationship. It's like, no, babe, it's because you've been running around to try to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you, I'm guessing that you experienced this yourself, that you got into a spot in your life and then it was like, wait, stop. What was that? Can you share a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, it happened. I saw it happening in my clients. And so I was kind of, all like, okay, well, that would never happen to me. Like that just happens to my clients. But, and then it did. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. Basically, I was noticing in my clients, I could just see it immediately. They would come to me. I was teaching relationship OCD and relationship anxiety healing, right? So I was coaching around that. And I would have a lot of individuals with quite severe OCD and anxiety come to me, especially because it was like nothing else had worked for them. They would kind of come to me and we'd do sessions and I would just notice it in them and I'd be like, I was almost empathically confused of
Mhm.
like it's okay. Like there's nothing to fix. And, we would go through the somatic tools and a mindfulness and they'd come out on the other side aware that everything was okay and there was nothing to fix and that, if, they would move forward and be very happy with their lives. And so I would see them just exhausted. And I was in that. And I think I really underestimated the, a couple of things. Number one, being quite psychic, but not having language for that and having negative experience around it. I didn't have a very positive relationship or a lot of control over the information that I received.
Mhm.
And so whenever I was going into coaching, it was more draining than it needed to be.
Gotcha.
Because I would either receive information that I didn't need to receive, didn't want to receive, or I would have to kind of like put this like big wall up that was also very hard to, like I didn't have it wasn't integrated. So it felt really like energy depleting to put up. So I'm kind of doing this I'm like receiving all of this information. I don't know how to manage that. At the same time, I, entered into this build your own business online thing and it was going quite well. But of course I needed it to go much better. And so I was aware that there was some self-development work to do around it. But I think a lot of that came from an idea that, it was from the parts of me that were uncomfortable, that wanted to be free of comfort. It didn't come from like a genuine curiosity of like, oh, who do you think I am behind all of this conditioning? What do you think
Mm,
my life could be like if I just like really embrace who I was? It just came from like, oh my God, this is really painful. I want to get rid of it.
mm,
And so I would go and I would try to like figure these things out. And a lot of the internet is marketed towards you when you're in that place and can recreate it if you're sensitive to it. And yeah, and then I arrived back in Australia having lived abroad for over a decade. And I just felt really safe. And I got in some really good relationships and I just felt really safe. And that safety gave me the space to look back and be like, oh, and then I felt really tired. And then it was all of these like big smush of things. And you know what I realized? I was like, oh, what's happening to them, but what used to happen to my clients is happening to me. And I'm burnt out by all of this trying to be better, do better,
mhm.
become a different, like quantum leap. I know that that was the words that I would use or they would use, but that
Sure.
energy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's interesting. I don't remember what year it was. It was maybe like 2023 or so that I feel like I pretty much spent that year like regularly working on dismantling my habit to push, go in more, work harder, overwork, all of that stuff. And you said something that made me think of that. It's like the same thing that can happen in the healing space when we have, I love how you put that, like the inquiry is like pointed in the right direction, but not really rooted in the right place. And you can feel the difference between like, oh, who is that? And like, oh, I want to fix this. And that energy, I was just talking about this yesterday too. That energy like is like up and over and it gets hunched and in and it starts to concentrate itself. And it's almost like this vortex, like creates this like vortex. So then as it's doing that, if you get close to it, it's like you just get sucked in more and more and more. And so, and then it starts to get really sticky and like you said, sneaky, where it's like, well, now that I'm in it, I'm going to try to get out of it by trying to fix it more. And the only thing you get by trying to fix it is experiencing trying to fix it. It's just like, what the heck?
Yeah, 100%. I think of it as like it's pointy. Like it's like going, we're doing the same thing with our hands. It's like you're pointed in this place, whereas beautiful, we can call it regulated energy, is like this open of like, like I always think of it's something that makes you go up and forward. What we actually need to be doing is just going down and back, just like down, down, down and back. So who am I down? Who am I down here? What do I feel down here? What do I know down here? Yeah.
Yeah. And giving it that space. So,
Yeah, I think, no, go ahead.
please.
I think when I listen to what you've been sharing in the podcast, you speak a lot around just like naming what you're aware of, naming what you are. And I wonder, this is, I think, my question for you. For me, that is down and back.
Mhm.
It's just, okay, what's back here? What's in here? You talk about cycles, and that to me is also down and back because the world lives very linearly. Our body, or everything in our body has a cycle. I'm curious if you've done that intentionally or if it's just kind of occurred naturally.
Do you
It
mean
happens to be synchronicity.
the down and back?
Yeah, like if I'm thinking about it in down and back, have you also thought about it in down and back, or have you thought about it, or has it just happened that these are like, you're like, I know that this works. I know that naming what you're aware of, being aware of your cycles, listening to yourself, acting on it, like being curious about yourself, about what you might do with your gifts, or that to me is down and back. Is it just a synchronicity that it's also how I would define down and back, or have you thought about it more?
Ah, uh-huh. I think a little bit of both. I've definitely used that term and also like had to relearn that. So, right, so that whole year, 2023, I'm going to call it now, was really focused on that. Like every day was, I don't know the better word than it like was a practice of what actually needs to happen today. Like what are the couple of things that actually like do, like realistically 3D wise, like need to happen, and everything else then I know does not need to happen today. And it was really hard. I was really shocked how much my body wanted to just keep going, even though I knew I was exhausted and what I was doing wasn't working for me. And so long story short, like I feel like I spent a whole year dismantling this piece of that kind of forward energy, the excitement that's there, which is also sometimes that like subtle anxiety. And then, and then there were a couple of years that were like really good, lots of flow. Things were just easy. Things were just happening, like very little efforting. And then a couple of months ago, actually, my partner got into like a busy spell. He just had one of those parts of his life, one of those cycles, I think, which just happened, just seasons of our lives where like a lot was happening all at once. It was like new work and transition, and we were planning for a wedding, we were fixing the hat, so there's like a lot all at once. And so, and he's the kind of person that will just take on more. Like that's the vortex too. It just take on more when more is happening. It's like, oh, I'll just take on even more. And I got caught in that too. I started to take on some of that myself, and I noticed all of a sudden I'm back in it. And and it took me a while to get out. I would say there was like a 2 month cycle here where, okay, I can feel this is gonna burn me out, whatever this is that's happening. And I guess there was a combination of separating, realizing that like partially what that energy was doing was trying to take something off of his plate, but like that's not even my plate. Just let him figure that out and get that lesson. And some of it was noticing that, like, again, the vortex is what it keeps coming to me, is just noticing that I kept trying to get out of that feeling by doing more of the thing. So I was like, oh, I'll work harder so I can get the break. And I was like, dang, no, I know that's not how it works. I know that to get the break, you just take the break. And that seems to be so hard. And I'm so curious, I'll toss it back to you from your experience. Why is that so challenging for us?
Well, we have all these experiences in the past, don't we, where we have to develop a strategy to deal with something. When we're a child, life is binary and we depend on our parents or our caregivers to care for us. So we don't actually have the option of they're wrong, they've done the wrong thing, and I don't want to be involved with them. The only option that we have is, okay, that's the game that that person who feeds me plays. I've got to figure out a way to get them to really like me so that they feed me more. And and especially as females, because our sense of safety is through connection. Individuals who have more estrogen in their nervous system, who are oriented to make safety through connection, because we have less testosterone, we have less of that like go do energy. It means that our body creates connection through and safety. It's kind of like they get smushed into one. More people equals more safe. And so we've all this estrogen, especially, and our caregivers are the ones who give us safety. So we have to develop all of these tools and strategies. That means that if my caregivers really value education, I've got to develop an achiever inside of me who pushes through to make sure that I get the correct grades. So now I have this achiever inside of me that pushes through to get the correct grades and does the right thing and works really hard and that gets me through my life. And I probably what happens is I become a lawyer, and then halfway through that I'm like, oh my God, I'm tired and I hate this.
Hey, quick pause. If you've been feeling interested in your spiritual gifts or confused by them, or maybe you're actually really intuitive and you're just looking for what to do next, I made something for you. It's called A Course in Spiritual Gifts and Soul Healing, and it's basically the guide that I wish I had when all of this stuff was coming in. Everything from the context of what's actually happening in my life and with my gifts, to how to really hold my gifts and anchor them in life in a clear and grounded way. We start off with a sacred reset, helping you get connected to yourself again, out of overwhelm and into your gifts right away. We cover things like work-life balance. I go deeply into the energy archetypes so you can deepen your own inner knowing and learn better communication and relational skills. in a really magical way. So you have deep, beautiful relationships. And then, of course, we go deep into the soul gift process where you do a healing journey alongside of opening your spiritual gifts and learning how to use them every day and for the rest of your life. It's a beautiful course. And my favorite part about it is you can do all of this without having to be perfect or having to constantly be more spiritual. So if that's something that your soul's been nudging you towards, you can find out more information at holtonhealingarts.com/the course. Now back to the show.
Or, I don't know, mum is inconsistently available emotionally. She's sometimes really there, but sometimes she's not. And as adults, we can see that that's not because of any failure of her behalf. She was doing really hard things. But the point is, when we were a kid, we just weren't really sure how available she was going to be. And females, males, every single person, science tells us over and over and over and over again, we will always choose warm, loving connection over food. So, what we're really searching for is warm, loving connection, especially as children. That has been proven over and over and over time again through all of the psychological studies. So, if we're not really sure how consistent that is, what we have to do is we have to develop a way to make it more consistent because we need it. We have to figure out what is within our control. So we figure out what it is that makes mom happy and or makes her more available to give me more of that, and we do it. So maybe it's taking something off of her plate. Oh, it's okay. I can do this. A lot of us who are like mid 30s now, we grew up in that kind of time or older where it was like children were really celebrated when they were helping, when they were like seen, not heard. So it's, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Maybe yours, you noticed that if you made mum and dad laugh, then now that kind of broke the ice. Or if you became a little bit of a mediator between your siblings and then mum and dad didn't have to deal with it. So now they had more availability for you. But we develop all of these tools and strategies. And so they're inside of us and they go, okay, cool, that is an effective way to deal with the world. I'm going to do that. A lot of us with the push and go forward, we develop a fixer, a problem solver. It's really effective to get through life with that, especially if it's hard, especially if we're neurodivergent or we have sensitivities, especially if you're receiving a lot of information as a child. It's probably more effective for you at that time to develop a push further into the 3D problem than what am I feeling, what do I need? Because what I'm feeling, what do I need might be an overwhelming experience. There's too much going on. I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm just going to go really deep into this problem, this activity, this whatever it is. We bring them into adulthood. And for those parts of ourselves, this whole idea of slowing down or pulling back or going inwards is actually what feels to be life threatening. Think of them as this entire parts of yourself, these entities that have developed this beautiful job and this gift. And so, first of all, there's this question of, okay, well, if you take that away from me, what the hell am I going to do? You mean I just sit here in this void? That doesn't feel good. The void is awful. I hate the void. And then there's also the on top of that of, but if I don't do that, then I won't be okay. I won't be safe. People will judge me. I won't get warm, loving connection. The world will fall apart. I won't have any money. I won't have any food. And it can get quite worst case scenario. Some of us can really go there. But it's like I feel like I won't be okay. Like something really, really bad will happen. So they'll fight quite creatively and sneakily. And sometimes it can be hard to see the way that they're fighting. And that's when we need actual mirrors and support. What if you don't need to be afraid? What if we can build trust inside of your system to show that what was what was true then, you had to push to keep going, is not true now. Pushing will actually hurt you more than it would if you were to rest. And build that safety inside, because then it just gives them the trust in you that you can move forward without betraying their needs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Am I being clear?
Mm-hmm. Very. Yeah. You wrote a book, The Somatic Intelligence for Success. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit about that and maybe a little bit about your process.
a
Let's start
process.
with the 3D side and then we'll get to the other side because I want to
Yeah.
hear both.
The book is simply a place for anyone who is usually kind of an entrepreneur, solopreneur, leader, business founder, and they can feel this vision for the world. They know that there's something better out there, but when they're working towards it, they feel like there's a wall. Like they get stuck, and they're probably tending to burn out, or they're just feeling incredibly overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And what we do is we have a three-part framework, and it's based in trauma therapy, it's based in parts work, it's based in nervous system regulation, but also really, really practical. This is how you do it. These are the steps to integrate this into your business, to create a business, to create something that works, whether it's on a small scale, such as like I just want to have a couple of coaching clients, or a larger scale. So I have tech founders who are using it and it's really working really well for them. And we do that inside of the three thing methodology. Yeah. And it's really cool because it's written with some science. It's got a lot of science in there. It's also got a story. So we follow two characters, Debbie and Emily, along their journey because we learn so much better through stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Okay. I'll circle back, but what I'm curious about now, as you're sharing a little bit about your framework and what helps, I remember you mentioned a little bit in your story. It's clear that the way the systems in our world is something that you're passionate about. From the outside, it seems clear anyway. And so I'm curious how social structures, ethics, all of the political stuff in the world was that a big challenge for you? Was that part of your nervous system regulation journey for yourself?
Probably yes. Yeah, my career started in community development. So I studied community development and international aid, and I lived in Colombia for 10 years and founded a nonprofit working with underprivileged women to get them to employability.
Mhm.
So I've always been hyper aware of the inequalities. I think the biggest challenge that I've had is I'm not the correct person to be like in the boots, like on the ground doing it. I found it too overwhelming, and the way that I've dealt with that, I don't know if it's the right way. The correct way is just by not doing it, um, and helping other people in other ways. That hasn't. I think that worldview continues to inform a lot of the work that I do in the world, particularly around the difference between cultural differences. So I'm always really curious about Western or individualistic ways of orienting and understanding ourselves and the world versus Indigenous or collective ways of understanding the self. And that's been a big sticky point as I've returned to studying traditional Western psychology at a university here in Australia,
Got it.
but having all of my knowledge come from lived experiences through healing in indigenous parts of Colombia. That is an interesting place to integrate. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels like you're at peace with it.
Absolutely. I don't really think about it. I'm actually curious. I'm like surprised at the question. I've never really asked it, but I think I'm beginning to realize that it is, to me, it's really obvious. And like, it's one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, that's just normal. That's just correct. That's it. But it's curious to hear the question because I can see that yeah.
Yeah, I think part of what brings it up for me is we were talking earlier about a little bit about the energetic here, and then also just that tendency when you see someone else stressed or overwhelmed to want to help. And then also, I'm seeing where a lot of people, whether they're considered themselves leaders or not, reach the burnout from the overwhelm of what happens in the world and what's happening in the
Oh,
world. And for me, I relate a little bit to what you're sharing in that at one point in my life, that was a, it's not that it's not a priority for me now, but it's changed too. It's like, oh, I'm actually not that person. I'm really clear for me where I work and where I'm also serving the best, and also that I don't have to be serving the best at all either. And I know that's a place where a lot of people get stuck too. And I was just
Well, I
curious if
think
that was something
what,
that you experienced.
yeah, you were talking about the drama triangle, right? Of here's the thing that needs to be saved. I can now save them from this ugly thing. Is that because we see that as I want to help people because deep down inside I'm extremely wounded and I haven't integrated that yet. So I really want to help them because every time I help them, then I feel better about myself. And I feel like I've been able to take this pain that I've experienced or that I can see or that I understand, and I can translate that into wisdom. And then if we do that for too long, we burn out. And also, it doesn't actually work that well. Is that what you're talking to?
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely did that. I was the white girl from Australia who thought, I'm going to go to Colombia and help these people with my degree. That didn't work. And it's pretty gross, actually, if you think about it. And then I was the yogi who experienced anxiety and then helped people with anxiety. And it was really helpful. And I did help and it was really good. But I see that a lot as well. And I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like beautiful and also not sustainable.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
what do you think?
I agree. I think there's a place in coming back to yourself, and part of the healing the burnout, not allowing yourself to go into overwhelm. There's that trap of helping others, and it does get really sneaky and sticky because it creates this space. It creates a space where you have to question yourself. Like, is this okay that I'm not helping? But it also creates this whole opportunity to understand that what helping is in a whole new way, what your goals are, what success means. Like, it's definitely an opportunity to, I think, step through into a completely different like paradigm of how we view the world. And then that way it also
Yeah.
helps other people more.
Yeah, and it invites a little bit less of a linear
Mhm.
way of looking at things because I notice there's a helplessness that can happen if I'm not achieving this really big goal, then is it worth it? I notice a lot of people get overwhelmed by that.
Mm.
And of course it's worth it. Yeah, you have to reorient what is success in this. How would I define success? How would I define achievement? I think it asks us to be a little bit less structured and linear and analytical about things and seeing things as like this, that one, that then the next. And if I don't achieve this specific thing, then I've failed as a human being. It's maybe a little bit less like binary.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about, especially in this space and from your personal experience, you had your own experience with kind of catching some of the burnout from your own clients. Obviously, a major transformation from how you thought you were going to be in the world to who you are now. I'm sure you've learned a lot. You shared a little bit about your process. Tell me a little bit more about what I guess my question is, tell me more about some of the ways that you really like the lens you're looking through in from inside when you're looking at others, when you're looking at the world. What's like your magic?
The lens that I'm looking through, can you give me an example of, or tell me more about what you're seeing?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I understand the question completely.
What do you like to use right now? What is like top of mind for you for evaluating what matters?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. Yeah. There are two things that it really comes down to, I think, in the end. Number one, what is the goal? I've found it really important. I worked with a couple of clients recently They came into like the group program that I have, and I asked them, "What's your goal?" And they all came through with three priorities. And I thought that was really interesting because the word priority, by definition, means the most important thing.
Got it.
One,
Yeah.
one. And this is something that I've learned a lot as I've really allowed the really healthy masculine energy into my life, which is the importance of focusing on one thing. Okay, what is the one priority? What is the goal? Where are we going? What do I want to achieve? What do I want to feel? Not because we want to go with that pointed energy, but because we need to have an anchor point. I need to know what is important to me in this season of my life. It might just be being curious. Okay, cool. At least we have an anchor. It might be increasing my income by this much. Cool. We have an anchor. And I let my clients choose too, and I let myself do the same because balance, but essentially, where are we going? And then the deeper question behind everything. And I use a lot of different like somatic parts, and we can use like dance therapy, and we can use basic coaching and like depth psychology. We can use 1,000 different tools. But the thing that's going to, I don't want to use the word define, but I will say it, whether or not that something feels good to you and has positive results in your life is with what energy am I taking this action or making this decision or having this thought? It's exactly what we spoke about at the beginning. When I go into this work trying to fix something, when I come from fear, things do not work out very well. I usually create more fear in my life. When I come from openness, curiosity, love, benevolence, desire, regulation, for a lack of a better word.
Mhm.
I just that word is so used now. But yeah, let's say regulation. Love, maybe. Everything grows. Everything that comes from that place will always be fertile and beautiful and abundant and positive and a bliss to experience, even if moments are hard. And so it's really just two things. Number one, where are we going? Okay, cool. Let's explore all of the different resistance to that, all of the different. I'm afraid that I'll achieve it, and then, God, what will people say if I'm successful? Or who will I? Like, all of these different things, and then disentangle it until you get to the very root of what is the most loving, what is the most true, what is the most beautiful, what is the most insert your word that you feel is correct for you, and then do that. And we just do that over and over and over again. It's a practice, like you said.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm giggling at your own commentary on the word regulation. And we touched on this before the call just briefly, but like clearly you're like a sensitive person and that you could experience a lot. And it seems like you've worked and lived in a lot of different realms, a lot of different professional settings and your own life experience. What is it like for you taking all that you know that you are and going into professional settings? Do you feel like you have to filter? How have you navigated that?
Oh, yeah. Um, Two things. The more specific that I get and the more that I just pick a friggin' sentence and some words, the better things are. Like it's just really true. And the more that I just release and let go of that. I remember writing my book. I was like, oh, I hate this tagline. It's not correct. You can't align your nervous system. It doesn't make sense. But I had to pick it. I had to use it because it's been difficult. And there are times where I feel, especially when I've done things that I mentioned, I've been doing a little bit more corporate, right? So I'm going to this marketing agency with a bunch of blokes who have never spoken about their feelings, but somehow we ended up talking about childhood trauma. It was amazing. And so that has been interesting. And past versions of me would have gone into a lot of self doubt because of the need. For me, it's felt like a need to change the way that I communicate so that I can meet people where they are, which is a tenet that I really believe in. It's one of the core tenets of the teachings of yoga is to meet people where they are and teach them what they can receive. That has been a challenge. But in the past, I would have made it and maybe parts of me have, we're being really honest, I would have made it mean that I would doubt myself. I would say, no, this means that something inside of what I know is incorrect because they don't also see it. But thankfully, I've done enough where I can deeply know it inside. And then the question that I keep returning to is, does this help more people do good in the world? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I'm worried about, it doesn't matter what I'm worried about, what I'm scared about, what I even feel about it. In a really beautiful way, feelings are feelings, they're sensations, they come and they go. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, my purpose is to help other people do more good. So, does it help? Yes or no? If it does, okay, that means that we're loving and we're kind to ourselves, but we do it. That's been really anchoring for me. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. For the person that's maybe on the edge of burnout, maybe they know or maybe they don't know that they're approaching that, what do you feel like they need to hear? Or what do you want them to know?
Go down to the parts of you that are worried about what would happen if you were just to stop everything. Doesn't mean you need to stop everything, doesn't mean you need to do it, but go down into those parts of you. You can do that with your own self inquiry. You can do that with one of the guided meditations that I know the Spirit has. You've mentioned them before, I've seen them on your website. You have the inner child meditations, like that would be a really beautiful place. Explore that with these pieces of you, these parts of you. You can also do that in my book. We have we have 6 chapters dedicated to this, and there's a whole sequence that you can move through. There's some beautiful exercises in there. Maybe that you do it with your therapist. It doesn't matter where or how you do it, but go and be lovingly curious with these parts of you of, ah, what would happen if I just stopped? Because if it brings you fear, it's usually a sign that maybe the actions that you're doing are rooted in achieving or fear. And until every single action that you're doing is not, when we all become enlightened, we're going to continue in these cycles that can be really painful.
Love it. Great. Yeah. So if you're like, maybe that's not it, just so you know it is it, go there.
The fact that you're thinking it means that it's it. It's just so comfortable, isn't it? Yeah.
Beautiful. So one last question, I think, not maybe related, maybe not. Just for you personally, Sheridan, what's your dream? What's your dream for yourself? What's your dream for the world? What's at the forefront of your beautiful creative mind right now?
No. Okay. What's my dream? You know what? It's about work. It's about helping every single person who goes to work every single day. If I could reach 1,000 people and create this, I would consider myself extremely successful. If 1,000 people or 100 people were to turn around and say, yeah, I went to work today, whatever that is. Maybe I run my own company. Maybe I work in corporate. Maybe I'm a nurse, but I went to work today and I felt calm, felt confident that I could take on everything, felt connected to the people that I work with. And I felt like what I was doing served a bigger purpose. That would, that's it. That's all I care about. That's what I'll continue to create and try to create in the world until the next one comes.
Yeah, great. Beautiful. I know a lot of people want that too. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're showing up to help there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you would probably be one of those people or not so much. Does yours feel different?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think deep down, like when it's all said and done, I do want people to be happy. I know that's like a cliche, and I've also gone through iterations of like, that's a people pleaser thing, but also it's just true. I do want people to be happy. And I also
Yeah.
know that you can find that regardless of your circumstances. Maybe connection. I think one of my favorite things that you said there that lit my heart up was like not only being centered and being calm at work and feeling like there's purpose, but like actually connecting to the people around you. That's it.
It's so important. I find so many people, all they actually want to do is be able to go to work and feel not go to work, but just wake up every day and say, I feel like I can be myself with the people that are around me. I feel connected to the people. It's what we all long for in our heart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining me. Thank you so much for your work in the world. Where can people find you?
You can find me, I would say, go to Instagram. Not on there a lot, but you'll find me. But you can go underscore Sheridan Ruth underscore. Also, just find me by getting my book, basically.
Great.
I also have a podcast. It's called Sustainable Success, and I'm on there. We have super short episodes of the practicality of applying this type of thing. And you'll find that by searching Sustainable Success. But if you pop Sheridan Ruth into Google, I'm the only one.
Sure. Wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much again for being here. And for those of you listening, thank you for being here as well. Hope you were able to take one top thing from the episode today that can just help give you a little bit more ease, find a little bit more centeredness, and stay present with yourself. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed the show, would you subscribe and leave us a review? Let us know you did at Spirit Bird Official. We love to support our listeners. And if you enjoyed the show, please share it with someone else who would also enjoy it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.